Welcome to the Farmizen show, where we uncover the delicious interplay between food, farming, and wellness, shaping a brighter, healthier tomorrow. Better for farmers, better for the planet, better for you. Let's dig in. Hey Kiruba, so nice to see you here. So people, today we have another exciting episode of the Farmizen show, and I'm very excited to have Kiruba as the guest today because I've been a long time fan and follower of his work. So he's one of the OG when it comes to blogging in India. He kind of really started blogging in India, and he has been a business blogger. He has been an entrepreneur. He has been a digital marketeer, an author of several books. And some time back, he actually started making a transition to also being a farmer and somebody who also does agritourism. So today we are going to learn about agritourism and how to build a profitable farm stay for him, and also understand his journey, hear about his challenges. So welcome, Kiruba. So glad to have you here.
So glad to be here, Shamik. And I love your choice choice of title that you've taken on profitable agritourism. And that's really a subject that I've been deeply interested in. I think it'll be of a lot of value for our viewers, especially on how do you make it really work, what mistakes to avoid, but more importantly, how do you get in more revenues to your farm? So I'm super excited to share with you my thoughts. In fact, for the last couple of years, I've been researching a lot on this. And my book, The Profitable Farm Stay, is actually going to be out by the time this episode will go live. So I'm very excited for that.
Awesome. And this is going to be available on Amazon Kindle as well as physical book as well.
You're correct, Shamik. You're correct. And it's been a labor of love. So when we started Vaksana Farm Stay, and I'll tell you the background story as we go into the show, one of the things that I've been very focused on is anything that we start, right, has to be a healthy mix of passion and profession. So it has to earn itself and it has to generate healthy profit so that we can invest our time, effort, and mind space into that particular project. So I've been very, very conscious right from the get-go that if you're starting a Vaksana Farm Stay, a farm stay business, it needs to be successful. It needs to get in a regular set of guests to come in and stay. It needs to make a decent profit. So, and what's the best way to learn? The best way to learn is from the best farm stays around the world. And that's how I started this book project, The Profitable Farm Stay. And I very carefully handpicked very unique farm stays in about 14 different countries around. And I would reach out to them. I would interview them. I would ask them, how did they go about doing it? What mistakes did they do that they would want others to avoid? What are some of the best practices when it comes to marketing? How did they make their guest experience really awesome? So over 100 plus interviews I've done, and it's been tremendously helpful. Of course, I did this with a selfish motive of wanting to learn this great thirst for knowledge, wanting to apply it in Vaksana Farm Stay. But then this knowledge is actually super helpful for everyone who's wanting to get into the farm stay business or into agritourism. And that's how the idea came about, saying that, hey, you know what, this is valuable knowledge. Why don't we all put it together in form of a book so that for anyone who wants to start or even thinking of doing this in the future, this becomes an excellent manual for them to read through and apply. So it really quickens their learning curve, and it fastens their journey towards profitable farm stay business.
I heard you mention something that you have interviewed a lot of these farm stay owners. Have you also visited farm stays across the world?
So I visited about 24 countries, both as a corporate professional and as well as a professional speaker. And every time I travel for work or for speaking engagements, I go to any country. I've made it a kind of a strong philosophy for me that I will never stay in a hotel. I would never stay in a resort if I have to pay. If my client is paying for me, I'm happy with that. But if I were to go and stay on my own, I always prefer to go and stay in a farm. in that country, even if it means traveling an hour or an hour and a half away from the city. And I've always been pulled towards that village life, the bucolic settings. And so over the last about 2.5 decades, every time I would go, back in the days, there used to be this concept of couch surfing, where you go and stay. And then there was woofing, worldwide opportunities in organic farms. I would go and stay, I would volunteer and get to meet people. And, farmers are amongst the most nicest people out there. And later came Airbnb, and I would always pick up Farmstays as a place to go and stay. So all of that has given me first-hand experience on what makes it memorable. And with every experience that I've gone and stayed, what really stood out for me is it is really not the room that you go and sleep in. That's probably the least most impactful thing for me as a person going and staying. It is the owners. It is interacting with them. It's learning about their journey. It's sharing our experiences. It is going and working in the farm. It's waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and going and cleaning the pig shed. It's going and milking the cows. So that kind of a hands-on experience is something that I still remember, even with some of the experiences like 15, 20 years back. So for me, I was very clear that if I were to start a farm stay, I need to focus less on the physical infrastructure. Of course, it needs to be comfortable. It needs to be luxurious. It needs to be all the basic hygiene factors has to be there. But the focus is really on enhancing the experience. Luckily for me, that dream coincided perfectly with one of the dreams of my grandma and my mom. So my grandma is 91 years old and my mom is 72. And both of them were born in a very, very patriarchal society, in a remote village. The job of a woman in a family is to take care of the kitchen and take care of the kids. And both of them were not very highly educated. My grandma studied only till 3rd standard. My mom only studied till 7th standard. But they had this very deep urge and inner desire to be financially independent. So they've always been telling that, hey, you know what, we should start some kind of a small little business. We should do something that we are good at, and whatever little money we need to earn. This has been on my mind, on the back of my mind for a very long time, Shamik, is that I want to make sure that I get their dreams come true. And this exactly happened during the pandemic. At the start of the pandemic, just like everyone else, we were forced to work from home. So for me, I'm running a digital marketing business. So for me, it did not matter for me whether I was working from a city or if I'm working from a village. And it so happened, it's amazing how the universe will conspire to make your dreams come true. Just a few months before the pandemic hit is when we had wired connectivity, internet connectivity to the farm. And that's a huge blessing, right? And just to give you a
Game
context,
changer, right? It's a game
it's a
changer. Having internet versus not having internet. It makes a big
complete
difference to
game
people,
changer.
right?
Just to give you, when I'm in the village and if I have to take a client call, I'll have to drive 4 kilometers from my farm towards the 4G tower that is there or 3G tower that is there. I have to park my car exactly facing that tower, and then I have to do that. In a day, I get like 6 meetings and I have to travel every single time. So coming back with the pandemic on, I decided to shift over to the village. And while being there, I noticed that there was this people were arrested in cities. And there was this kind of a pent-up demand wanting to escape out, but they can't escape out to a place. They can't go to a resort, can't go to a hotel. They can't go to any crowded space. So I started getting inquiries from people saying that, hey, can I come and stay at the farm? Our farm is very distantly located. It's 2 kilometers away from the nearest village. It's 13 acres of organic bliss. It's peaceful. There's lots of space. And that's when an idea came about. Hey, you know what? I need a place to sit and work. So I constructed a small home office, thinking that, hey, when I'm there, when I'm working, I will use that as an office. When I'm not there, and if somebody wants to come and stay, like an Airbnb, they can come and stay. So I have to tell you that I think I worked for all of 3 days in that house, Shami. Word quickly spread about, and it took a life of its own. and the place was completely booked out. A few people came in, they put it on Instagram, it became viral, and with one farmhouse getting filled up, then a little later we built a second farmhouse that also got filled up quickly. We built a third farmhouse, and then we built a couple of more rooms meant for solo people and for couples to come and stay. Planning for our next one. So it's really taken off very well because, and this is very important for anyone listening to it, it is not about the farmhouses. It is because of this powerful story of a 91-year-old woman and her 72-year-old daughter wanting to run a business together. And both of them, both my grandma, her name is Lakshmi Pati, and my mom, Kasturi Ammal, both of them are amazing at cooking, and it's their vintage village vegetarian cuisine is actually very well known for, and they're the ones who would cook the meals for the guests, and they would really fall in love with it, and they would go tell their colleagues, they would go tell their family members, their friends, and then completely through word of mouth people started to come back. And I think it is that experience, right? My dad, who's at the
So I
farm,
think
he's
one
an
of the things that
amazing.
I'm kind of sorry, one of the things that I'm picking away from this is that it's one of the starting points if you're going to do a farm stay is that you really need to have a good story. You need to put some thought to building a good story and be able to tell that story because once you have that, other things tend to fall in place, right? Because everybody would have this cold start problem. Okay, I got this idea, I have a farm, I set up a couple of rooms. How do I get my first customers? Right? So I think the storytelling is a very important part, is one of the things that I'm taking away from this.
So one is storytelling, Shamik. The second one is visually telling that story very well. So the habit or the skill of the ability to shoot videos, to shoot lots of footages, and pile them up, keep them with you, and then when an opportunity comes for you to really tell that story, you will need all of those footages. So I think developing good video skills is equally important. Storytelling, right, like you perfectly mentioned, Shami, is super important. These are little simple things, like for example, all the animals in our farm, we have cows, calves, goats, sheep, pony, rabbits, pigeons, ducks, and turkeys, and guinea fowls, chickens. All of them, the interesting thing is, anytime there's a newborn calf, or the guinea pigs have given birth, all of them get names named after Rajinikanth characters. That's a unique thing.
Okay.
And how did that come about? Because the very first calf that was born at the farm was a male calf, and he was born exactly on the day that Rajinikanth's hit movie Kabali was released. So it was a no-brainer for us. We were searching for a name. Kabali had just released, that was the talk of the town, and so we named him Kabali. And that started a series of tradition through it. That's storytelling. Another thing is that any guest who comes and stays out there, they get to tell what is one of the closest dreams for them. So for example, one of the mom's dream thing is to have her son married that year. So that was the dream. Another girl who had come and stayed, her dream was to go to Stanford University and get admission into that. So likewise, every person, all of us, we all have dreams, right? We have bucket list and we have New Year resolutions. It's a tradition in our farm that think of the one dream that you would like to come true, right? And think of that wish, and we get to each one of them to go plant a sapling in the farm, right? So you're really seeding the dream in the land, and just as that sapling will grow into a tree, so will be your dream that will come into reality. Simple acts like these really enhances the emotional connect. Even now, this girl I was telling you, who has gone to Stanford University, she was successful, she got the seat. And when she came back during a vacation, she came only to come and admire the tree, because that, she says, was a game changer for her. So focusing more on anyone who's running a farm stay has to focus on that emotional connect with the guest. They have to focus heavily on the owners being present out there. You can never run a farm stay remotely. You can never have a caretaker be out there and run a farm stay. Then it becomes just like any other Airbnb or just any other hotel, right?
Right. That's a
The
very
way
interesting
how
point, because what that means is that, let's say somebody has like 10 acres, 20 acres running somewhere, and they're like, okay, I have a job and I'm just going to start a farm stay there. And I just want to monetize it. That may not be the right reason to run a farm stay, because you might not succeed, right? That's what I'm hearing. That unless you are kind of personally involved, like even in organic farming, right? It's very difficult to do organic farming in a completely remote manner. That I'm going to hire a supervisor, I'm going to hire a few farm labor, and then go to do it. Unless the person, the owner himself, kind of really gets involved in it, it usually does not work. So what I'm hearing from you is that's the same situation also with the farm stay as well. That you need to be personally looking forward to it succeed, right? So that's very interesting. Just taking a different tunes and so out of all of these farm stays that you've visited across the world, right? What, if you had to choose one, what would that be? Which was the most memorable one, and why?
So this was a farm stay in about an hour and a half from Wellington, the capital of New Zealand. I'd gone there to attend a conference, the Global Speakers Summit, which is like the mecca of professional speakers who come together. And like I told you that I always prefer to go and stay at the farms and not in hotels nearby. So I was googling around and I got hold of this place. It's just a single room. I think it's about a 7 acre farm, and it's just a single room out there. And what is interesting is so they have sheep and they have chickens. It's at a rolling hill. New Zealand, right? I mean, it's really the epitome of beauty out there. So, and I got so very friendly with the owners out there, and even to this date, right? So I think this happened in 2000, and it's been 5 years since then, and we've now really good friends. We often consult each other. Sometimes we even talk about things that are beyond professional thing and picking each other's mind, asking for advice. It's just remarkable, right? So I go on as a complete guest, right? I'm just going out there to just stay. But look at this, 5 years later, and look at how this friendship has blossomed. I think to me, it's that relationship. It's that the host has made an indelible impact in your mind, and you would never forget them. I think those are things that I would cherish a lot. I think it's those experiences, and also the fact that the second experience that I'll never forget is that I was in Japan. I went to this city called Sapporo. Sapporo is a part of the northern part of Japan. Um, and I went there to speak at a conference, and and just like any place that I go to, I would always take a few extra days to explore the place, to stay at these remote places. The owner gave me his car key, and the owner gave me the house key, and the owner gave me his cycle key. So the entire duration of the time that I was there, he had these duplicate keys that is there. He just entrusted that completely to me, to a complete stranger, right? We don't even know each other before that. I think it is that kind of a trust, and it's something that makes it really wanting you to pay it forward. So when we host guests, that's exactly what the experience that I like to pass it on. Somebody made me feel great. Not because the AC was fantastic or the bed was super thing, but it is really these small acts of kindness, this ability to make you do things. I'll tell you another one. In Philippines, I was there. I was staying at this place, and while we were discussing, I was telling him about one of my dreams is that I want to drive in different countries. So just a little bit of background information. I'm a little. I'm a really good driver, but I have this fear when I go and drive in a different country, mainly because I don't want to get fined. I don't want to get arrested. Those kind of things that run in the back of my mind. And this guy saw my phobia and he said, listen, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to sit next to you. I'm going to make you a driver. I want you to make your dream come true. Look at that. I mean, I'll never forget those experiences like that. So those are things that I mean, Shami. And anybody, and you rightly said, you took a perfect analogy of if you get into organic farming with the intent of making money, you almost never do. It's the same thing even with farm stays as well. If you're thinking of starting a farm stay, wanted to make money, you're most likely to not succeed. You might you might break even, you might do every single farm stay that I've been to that has really succeeded a lot is because there are things that motivate them beyond money. And money is a beautiful byproduct. If you focus on great customer experience, money automatically comes. This is exactly what I mean. I love when Dhoni says, and there's a great example that he says, saying that, hey, you know what? Nowadays I see cricketers being infatuated, obsessed with Instagram followers and YouTube subscribers. But some of the greatest people, when you look at, are all people who are really not bothered about followers. They're just bothered about the basics. How do you score runs? Because when you start scoring runs and you start scoring centuries, the followers and subscribers almost automatically come. It's the same thing even with Farmstay experience as well.
Like many other things in life, right? If you try to go after the money, then it never comes to you. If you try to go after other things, then the money follows, right? So I think that's true here as well. So if we talk a little bit about, if we rewind, right, and if we talk a little bit about when you were starting your farm stay, obviously you had some initial apprehensions, etc., about, hey, there is something new that we are going to start. You're going to invest some money into doing that. So, were there any specific challenges that you faced during this whole thing as well, which maybe you didn't expect? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. See, for me, my farm is 100 kilometers from Chennai. It's in a remote place. There are places like in Pondicherry. There are excellent places to go there and stay. Humpty number of choices. And the question that had in back of my mind is that, hey, I'm building a farm stay here. Why would somebody ever want to come 125 kilometers from Chennai or about 350 plus kilometers from Bangalore? Why would they want to come in and stay? So that was a challenge. But then I realized that challenge was an unfound fear. So people want to drive and people want to escape the city. People want to go to really remote places. And that fear was completely unfounded, Shabi. So the challenge that I'm telling you is really my own mindset. The second thing is that never listen to people. They mean good. They mean well. They want you to succeed. And hence people will come and say, why are you building this house in the middle of nowhere? Your land is 2 kilometers away from the nearest village. There's not a single house nearby. What if there's a thief? What if there's a burglar? What if somebody throws stones at the glass windows? So many other questions that come up. But you know what? Every single one of them is just completely just fear in the air, right? It didn't make any sense at all. It turned out to be one of the best decisions going and developing our farm and building the farm stay and really taken off very, very well. So the challenges I would say are when others try to put their insecurities or their fears and they would put it onto you, but you need to do your research very well. And I would say that for me, what greatly helped is that I've already had some kind of a worldly wisdom, having gone to many countries, having gone and stayed at many farm stays, and I've seen what has really worked. I've spoken with those people and found out what works, what does not work. So I was armed with knowledge, and I think that was my biggest strength. Had I not had that, then all of those fear mongering and those questions that people threw at me, I would have buckled under pressure for certain.
So okay, so let's go a level deeper, right? So if you look at profits, right? Profits has two levers to it, right? There's the revenue side and there's the cost side. So we'll talk about the revenue side, but let's first focus on the costs. So if you can walk us through when somebody's thinking of starting a farm stay business, how do you look at costs? What are the major costs? Which is Capex? Which is OPEX? And in OPEX, which are the top 2 or 3 things which it is most sensitive to, right? Or where you can really focus on and try to optimize things. So let's look at the cost side of things first, the upfront cost as well as the running cost. Can you throw some light on that?
Absolutely. So let's look at both Capex or capital expenditure and OPEX or operational expenditure. I'll start with Capex first. The most important one would be the house itself, right? There are multiple ways in which you can go about it. Some of the farm stays that I've had is they've spent 0 rupees on any additional thing. They have a house there, that extra room or the hall becomes a place for people to come and stay. I mean, this is true couch surfing, true farm stay kind of a thing, where you go and stay in somebody else's house. So that's one style with very, very minimal expenditure. You could go doing that. But the route that I chose to do was I figured that when people want to come to a farm, they would want their own privacy, they would want their own seclusion, they would want to have their own peace and quiet so that they can come here, replenish, rejuvenate, and go back refreshed. So that's the route that I took. So when we built the houses, for us, our initial house costed us, I'm trying to remember the math. I think it costed us about close to about 11 lakhs is what we built our first house. And the second house costed us a little over 15. And the third house went to about 20,000 or 20 lakh 21 lakhs around. With every year, the cost went up, but also we expanded the square footage. But these are all capital expense that you will have to put in. You need to have those places. While building these farmhouses, it is very important to figure out what is unique about that farmhouse. If you want your farm stay to really succeed, if you're trying to build a house just like how you would build in any part of Bangalore or in any city and then plop it in the middle of a farm, most likely it will be a very subpar experience. So you need to do something that the others have not experienced at all. Like, for example, in the farmhouses that we have built, it's a very conscious decision that we went, our architecture is very Scandinavian. There are lots of large windows around the house. We don't have rooms, instead we have mezzanine floors. It's a very open floor concept. And it turned out to be a big hit with families and with groups of friends coming together. Worked out fantastic. So for me, my goal was to have a very good indoor-outdoor experience. How do you bring the nature indoors and have a very seamless thing? So that's the first Capex that people will have to focus on. The second part of the Capex is once they come in, what are all the activities they will do at the farm, right? Then you need to have a very nice pond, for example, that turned out to be a big hit for us. We have this agricultural pond where we store rainwater because, just like how the problem that Bangalore is facing right now. So we also live in a place where we are completely dependent on rain gods. So we get huge amounts of rain during just 2 months of the year, and the rest 10 months is completely dry. So we store all of the rainwater in 3 large ponds, but those ponds get doubled up as a place to go and swim or go take a nice cool dip. So you need, farms must have something, water body, a specific thing. I would put that as a Capex. I would also, in terms of capital expenditure, I would definitely put farm animals. I think that's a must-have in any farm stay because, cows and goats and chickens, they lend so much of that agrarian lifestyle of vibe, because these are all things that you can't experience that in a city. And when people come and stay, Shamik, they almost, at least for us, 98% of people who come in, they all come in as families, as large extended families. And so you need to make sure that your farm adheres to the needs of young toddlers, to young kids, to teeny boppers, to Gen Xers, to grandparents. So you need to make sure that they all get something to experience out there. So I would put many of those experiences as part of the capital expenditure. So those are the main things. Of course, outdoor bathrooms you must construct if you want to get in day visitors to come in. So they definitely need outdoor bathrooms and shower areas. Those are things that are very important. Moving on to operational expenditure, the number one operational expenditure is actually farming itself. Because if you want your farm stays to succeed, you better do your farming really well. Completely miss out on priorities. And I've seen people where they see that, hey, they're getting more money from farm stay than from farming. So they completely left out farming and only focused on farm stay. But after a period of time, when guests come and stay, they're not coming to come and stay in just a house. They're coming here for the whole
Like, where's the
experience.
farm?
Right?
Okay, you guys said you are a farm, but I can't see any fruits. I can't see any vegetables, right? Where's the farm, right?
Correct. Very well said. So the number one operational expenditure would be just focus on farming and stay away from monoculture. That's a doom. So focus. If you want to take farm stay seriously, I would definitely encourage permaculture. Have lots of fruit trees, have lots of flowering trees, and grow your own vegetables. That's super important. I can't tell you the amount of joy that people get when they come to your farm and 2 hours before having their lunch, they walk into the farm, they pick up tomatoes, they pick up brinjal, lady's finger, and they come and hand it over to Pati and Amma. And when that gets cooked, and then when they have lunch, they know exactly where this was grown. They know exactly what vegetables are because they handpick them with their own hands. So that connection with the food is so strong, and it's something that people will never forget. There's so many times that people have come and said that this is the very first time in my life that I've harvested vegetables and I've eaten the food with the harvested vegetables. So I think that's important. What else would be under capital expense?
Like in biodynamics. So yeah, so in biodynamics, for example, when we talk about a farm, biodynamics is one method of agroecological agriculture, right? And in biodynamics, we specifically say that a farm is not just the land, right? A farm is has the land, has the plants, has the animals, has the humans, and finally the spirit of the place. So that's what defines as what needs to be the farm, right? So I think that's why I really take your point that I mean you should focus on having farm animals because truly speaking, an organic farm which relies on very little inputs from the outside world, etc., absolutely needs to have farm animals there, right? It absolutely needs to have plants there. Otherwise, it's not a farm. Otherwise, it's a piece of land, right? But we'll also talk about the spirit of the place as well. And how do you build that spirit of the place? We'll come back to the cost question. But the spirit of the place, what will the spirit be in Vaksana Farms? What is that undefined thing called spirit of the farm?
Yeah, I think the spirit of the place really starts from the vision that as the farm owner you set. I'm a strong believer because 12 years back when we decided, myself and Sujini, my wife, when we decided to kickstart the farm, we named it Vaksana because Vaksana is a Sanskrit word for lush green. For fertile land with lush green. That's what, and that was our vision. When we started off, we had to start from minus, Shami. It was all grown with, in Tamil, I don't know what's it called in English. It's called Karvela Maram, which is these tiny trees that grow. It's a very invasive species that grows and it sucks away groundwater. It doesn't allow any other plant to grow. And that was what was infested in our land. So we had to clear them off. We had to pull out all those deep roots and start really from minus and start off with a completely bad land. And every single tree that you see right now at Vaksana Farms has been planted by us, right? So humongous kind of an effort that has gone in. I think the spirit of the land really starts from that grand vision, and speaking about the grand vision to whoever is coming to your place, whether it is people wanting to come and work with you, or even our own kids and our own parents and relatives. It's important for you to embody that spirit and really translate that vision so that everybody buys into the vision. Also, about the spirit of the land, let me tell you one very important point, Shami, and that if in most cases, this dream of a farm typically starts with one person. It could typically be the guy, in his 30s or 40s, wanting to, I'm guessing, in an IT job, and now having the dreams of having this own, organic farm. Typically, that the dream or the desire comes out of one person. But if it is just that one person who is powering that dream, with no support around from their families, it becomes a very uphill task for the person to realize that dream. You need to buy the confidence and the support of your entire family ecosystem. It starts with your wife, it starts with your parents, your kids, your near and dear ones. And to do that, you need to understand what's in it for them. So this was a very important question that I asked myself. I was very clear right from the beginning that my family members need to buy in. So I realized that my dad is a motor head. He loves everything automobiles. So what we did, we set up a car workshop where he can tinker around with mechanics and he can tinker around with motors. He's a very hands-on guy. He's a hacker. He's a maker. So that workshop space is his happy place. So he's like super happy being at the farm. My mom loves flowers, and she likes to plant these flowers and offer it to gods and make garlands. And guess what? There are lots of flowering plants and flowering trees out there that makes her happy. My wife loves growing own veggies. She has a beautiful, in the city in Chennai where we stay, she has a wonderful terrace garden. So I realized that, okay, so growing vegetables and things is her fancy. So she gets to follow a dream of really growing whatever vegetables that she wants, and that's a pull factor. Both my daughters, they love animals. They're not so much into the farming side of things, but they're completely into farm animals. They're into any animals. So for them, those farm animals is the magnet that pulls them to the farm. So if you're getting into the farm stay business, it's very important to understand what each of your family members like, and then you tweak your farm in such a way that they love coming to the place. A farm and a farm stay should be a place that should really attract them to come to the farm, and not just say, "Oh God, I have to go there." So that's super important. I think if that is set, then the spirit of the place really takes on a beautiful, beautiful charm.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. I think that makes a lot of sense. So coming back to the operational, we talked in detail about the capex, but in terms of the opex part, one you said is the most important thing is perhaps the farming expenses itself, right? Because you can't have a farm if you're not doing the agriculture bit of it, right? What are the other pieces, the broad buckets of opex
Farm
in
animals.
general?
You need to have variety of farm animals, and that will involve expenses, their feed expenses, their enclosures, their often upkeep, veterinary doctor fees. So those are things that surprisingly they can add up really quickly. So that would be an important operational expense. The third one would be the manpower cost. Whether you want a carpenter, you want a plumber, you need a blacksmith to come and do something. So you'd be surprised about the amount of work that is required. So that's a significant cost that goes towards manpower expenses. These are the top three that really comes to my mind.
So for a farm of your size, right, can you share some numbers as to what your expenses are, operational expenses are across these buckets? Whatever, if you remember the approximate numbers.
Yeah. So we are 13 acres. Out of 13 acres, we probably use about 7 acres of that actively. The rest sits to be developed. So even with that kind of a space, along with running the farm stay, along with along with manpower costs, your electricity bill, your miscellaneous expenses, it easily comes to about 1.5 lakh or 2 lakhs. That's our expenses per month it comes to, and this greatly depends on your electricity bill that comes in, because EV bill comes every 2 months, so that'll be a yo-yo cost out there. So, because talking of this cost, it's very important to understand that if you don't do marketing well, if you don't take this as a serious business, if you don't attract regular guests, then you can very quickly and very easily fall into loss. Which means that if you have, in my case, if I have 3 months, bad months that go on, I'm minus 5 lakhs. So it is kind of like catching a tiger's tail, It's like being on a treadmill that there is no off button in the treadmill. You need to keep running. And this is the expectation that people have to set correct before they get into the business. It is so very easy to get enthralled by beautiful YouTube videos, by this vision of these green open spaces, wind wafting through, and chickens cockadoodling in the mornings, and it's so good to be enamored by the village lifestyle. But keep in mind that this is a dog eat dog world. It is serious business, and you need to treat it like one. If you take it as a hobby, it can very easily become a white elephant, and it can burn a big hole in your pocket. So anyone who's considering wanting to get
Because I
into the
think
farm.
capacity, like other hospitality businesses, capacity utilization is a very important parameter here as well, right? Because let's say if you have like 4 rooms, so 8 people or 10 people can stay. So your maximum revenue is when all 10 people are always occupying that, right? And what you're saying is that in the peak months, you might have full occupancy, so everything is good, you are profitable, but those profits might get wiped away if you have a few months where there's hardly anybody coming because maybe it's too hot or maybe it's not vacation season and things like that. And at that point of time, you can't really reduce your costs directly. You can't fire your labor. Who's going to take care of the farm? How are you going to find them back again? Right. So I think a lot of issues come in with respect to that. You can't really, it's not like, okay, when I have good revenues, I'll make my costs up and then I'll keep on reducing, right? So you'll have those fixed costs even in OPEX, which will keep on coming in. So I think that is a
Correct.
very important thing to kind of manage here, which brings us to the question of the revenues. So what it seems to me is it's not just about maximizing revenues, but also like making sure that the revenue is fairly spread out throughout the year, that you are able to keep the capacity utilized throughout the year, right? So, what sort of strategies can people use? Because, I mean, what do you do if it's okay? People come to your place during winter vacations because other times maybe it's a little too hot, or maybe people just don't come. So, how do you manage this capacity? What strategies can people think of to manage, occupancy throughout the year?
So number one, there is no concept of a low season. So that's one thing that you need to kick out of your mind. It's very easy to have people come in during summer vacations, and then later, it's very easy for us to throw an excuse saying that, hey, college has started, so school has started. It's as a farm stay owner, it's your complete responsibility to ensure that people come in, and you need to give sufficient, really good reasons for them to come in, right? So that's why we need to put on our salesman hat, we need to put on our marketers hat, and you need to think of various ways. So for us, we take this very seriously. The first one is uh, getting the story out. Like we discussed earlier, the storytelling part is super important. You need to tell who you are, who your family is, what is it that you're trying to, what is your vision for the farm, what's your philosophy. So, for example, we are a completely organic permaculture farm, which means that we try our best not to use any chemical fertilizers or pesticides or herbicides. We have cows, but we don't use milk. We don't sell milk. We only use it for the cow dung, and that is used as manure for the plants. So getting that story out is very important for people to hear. So storytelling is number one. The second one is getting the word of mouth about your farm stay on social media. So having a strong presence on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Google is very, very important. Getting proper videos done that beautifully translates the beauty of your farm for somebody to come. Most people, they can't come to your farm, right? They've not seen your farm. But you need to give them the dream of how it is when they come to your farm. And your video should be so good that they should entice them to come. So that video creation ability is very important in addition to being present on social media. The third important marketing activity is testimonials. If a guest has come and stayed at your place, if he or she has had a great experience, in most cases, they will come and tell you in person. So, for example, they'll come and tell me, or they'll come and tell my mom, saying that, the food was amazing. It's so delicious. Stay was very relaxing. And thank you so much for taking good care of us. And they'll say tata, bye-bye, and they'll go off. Now that is great to hear, but it's also a lost opportunity because their compliment, their praise immediately disappears into thin air, right? But you need to capture that as testimonials, as video testimonials, or better still, for them to go and put that as a review on Airbnb or on Booking.com or on Google My Business. So that's also something that it's very important because as humans, we do not have the habit of going and leaving reviews. Ask yourself, what was the last movie that you went and saw? And did you go leave a review on Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb.com? No. how many products would we have bought on Amazon or on Flipkart? And have you written reviews on the products that you bought on Amazon? No. So when somebody comes and stays at our farm, why do you think they would even go and leave a review? They will not, right? Because it's a transaction business. They're giving you money, you're giving them you're giving them a great experience, and that's it. You're even Stevens. So you need to take extra effort to request for a review. And to request for a review, you need to give a great experience. Only then they will give you a nice review. So the third one is really your marketing. The fourth one is being present on all OTAs, the online travel agents, which is your booking.com, your Agoda, your Make My Trip, your Clear Trip. In all of those cases, you need to be present out there. You need to ensure the right photographs are put up, right information. You need to ensure that if one booking happens in one place, then it's reflected in all the other portals. You do not want double booking or triple booking, because then if some guest comes there and they don't have a room, they can get really, really pissed off, and your reputation will go for a stay. So all of these things are super important for you to build a very nice marketing ecosystem so that the sales engine starts kicking in. So keep in mind
Like
that
especially talking about videos, if you talk about videos, I think you're absolutely right that for farm stays, it's obviously important. Let's say you are running an Airbnb somewhere else in a tourist spot and stuff like that, or let's say it's a hotel and things like that. The thing is, it's even more important for farm stays as compared to these other hospitality businesses, because in a farm stay, it's really all about the experience, right? I mean, you don't really have like, okay, no, I mean, not really a tick box. Okay, is there AC? Is there good food? It's not really that short, right? You are kind of really selling the experience. In most other hospitality things, there's like a standard sort of, okay, X, Y, Z, these things, these amenities will be there. In case of a farm stay, the other things are probably, I would argue that they are probably more important than, of course, the basic stuff is obviously required, but it's difficult to compare farm stays. If you are somebody who's just looking at, you know, just some text data across and say, okay, let me go here because they have a jacuzzi, they have this, let me go here. That does not happen with a farm stay. So you really have to visualize the experience. And what better way for doing that than a video, right? So I think really paying attention to doing good quality videos, not just okay, let me just put it something, makes a lot of sense for, especially for farm stay businesses, because of this focus on the experience part. And the other thing, I think the reviews thing also, I mean, I see that very often that on Airbnb and other places, right, people who have 5-star ratings are not necessarily the guys who have the best thing. They are the guys who have perfected the review process of making sure that they strike the iron when it's hot, right? See, if you ask for a review after 10 days, it's not going to work, right? You have to ask for that review when the customer is in that wow mind space kind of. So the guys who have the best reviews, not just in Airbnb, but even in Amazon, etc., right, are the guys who have perfected the art of asking for that review in the right spot just after they have wowed the customer, right? And many businesses, unfortunately, miss out on that. They are really great businesses, but they don't have enough 5-star ratings, etc., simply because they did not ask for it. They were like, okay, I have, as you said, right? It's a transactional thing. I have done my job, what you expected, you gave me money. So it's fine. If you like it, you will do it on your own. Doesn't work anymore. You have to really ask for that, right? So
yes,
in Vaksana Farms,
I just wanted to add on to the lovely points that you mentioned, that reviews, like you rightly said, are super important. It also means that we need to step out of our comfort zone, even asking for reviews, right? So most of us, we tend to be very shy, very, oh, how do I ask? It's not good. Especially in the rural side, you tend to be very humble and you don't want to. So that's something that we'll need to step out of it. In fact, one of the books that I'm writing is actually titled Reviews to Revenues, on how online reputation management can be super helpful for any business. So I completely agree with you. Sorry, I didn't hear your question. What is the question, Shani?
yeah. So my question was, how do you guys manage your reviews? When do you ask for it? How do you get out of that comfort zone at Vakasana Farms? What do you do?
Yeah, at Vaksana Farms, one of the things that we do is good service, great service is given. right? So there is no escaping it. Yeah. Providing a very comfortable space, the house being fully air conditioned. We get lots of power cuts, which means that we need to have our generator sets ready on standby and quickly power up. Give them really delicious food. My mom and dad, they meet every guest, they welcome every guest. My grandma used to be such a powerful icon for the farm. She was 91. She passed away just about a month ago, but she used to be the mascot of the farm, and people would come, they're surprised and shocked that how can a 91-year-old woman run a business, and she used to be so very active in running the business. So that was a huge pulling factor. And in many cases, Shavik, it's very interesting that people want such people to succeed. You don't expect a 91-year-old woman to run a business. And so people are actually rooting for her success, right? And they're always craving for what is it that I can do to make her happy, make her successful. So and that's why it's important as farmstay owners for us also to be vulnerable, meaning that you should, while you're talking to them, don't put on a facade. Just talk about the challenges that you're going through. Talk about the difficulties that you're going through. And, things like I told you about whether I get customers or not, I'm down 1.5 lakhs a month. That's a given fact. You don't expect your guests to come and know all those numbers, but it's important for them to know. Then, when they know that the true nature of the business and the difficulty, and that's when they say that, okay, so these guys did really good job. They took care of me. They fed me very well. They gave me a great experience. The least I can do is write a good review for them. That should be the thing, right? But none of this will work if you don't give them a great service, right? That's par for the course. That's very, very important. So at Vaksana Farms, there are a few other things that has really worked very well for us. So I'm a drone pilot. And so what I do is I shoot very nice drone videos of the family at the farm. I have an Insta 360-degree camera. So I take some really fun videos of them. I have an action camera that we can fix in, and people can shoot. It's waterproof. They can shoot videos of them while they're swimming. So these are all footages that you do not expect a regular guest to have. Most people don't have drones. They don't have 360-degree cameras. They don't have action cameras. But if you can shoot some really nice videos on their behalf and actually edit them into nice reels, and Instagram reels and YouTube shorts, and you give it to them, oh, it makes them so very happy. It makes the women folk in the family happy, the kids in the family happy, and they're more than happy to go and share it on their Instagram. Why? Because they want to tell their friends and families that they had a great time. But guess what? This becomes like your most potent, effective marketing strategy for your farm. Because now guests are raving about you and they are showing visuals, and they're telling their happy stories to their circle of friends. And that's what gets in more inquiries in. So you shoot these footages and gift it to them as a nice gesture, but you're also doing this knowing very well that this is going to help you in the long run.
This is amazing. So this is like, like essentially your customers might not be able to shoot such amazing videos. So you go that extra mile to do it. It has that marketing benefit, which is your ultimate goal. But at the same time, it also wows your customers. So this is great. Actually, I remember that we have used this sort of a tactic at Farmizen as well, right? Where when people would come and visit our farms and kind of get hands-on to do farming, etc. We knew that they are taking pictures, etc. But sometimes you would actually have a photographer because they would be able to take really nice pictures, and then we would take down their phone numbers and send it to them. We would not post it on Insta. We would send it to them, and invariably, if the picture is something which is amazing, they'll go ahead and post it somewhere, right? So I think this is an absolutely brilliant strategy that not only see we keep on talking about making your customers your evangelists, but we have to also equip them to become really good, stylish evangelists, right? So this is one example of that. Brilliant. I think this makes a lot of sense, and this is something which it does not cost you money; it just costs you effort and thinking about it, right? So amazing. That's really really cool. So you mentioned something interesting. You mentioned that there's nothing called off season, right? Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What did you mean by that?
Yeah. So every single month, your standard expenses remain the same. You have to pay the salaries. You have to pay your current bill. You have to take care the feed for all the animals. They don't vary basis on whether it's a high season or low season. With your expenses being normal, it's important. The onus lies on us to ensure that people keep coming in regularly. But how do you do that? During summer holidays, it kind of takes care of itself because people want to give their kids a great memory, and hence it's very easy for them. But what happens in other days? It's when you have to creatively think. So what we found is that, for example, we found that there is a market for teams of 10 or teams of 20 in corporate companies wanting to do, it could be a Scrum program, it could be a working on a project. They want to be very, very focused. They want to escape off to a place, them joining together and working on a time-bound project. We found that there is market. Some of these people actually go and take meeting rooms in hotels so they can sit undistracted from the office space. And places like these actually turns out to be brilliant, especially with good Wi-Fi being available. It turns out to be like super, super productive for them to come. So that's one case study. Another case study that we found is that anniversaries, birthdays, promotions, retirement parties, these tend to be celebratory occasions where people do not mind taking a holiday from office and going to a unique place to celebrate. So focusing heavily on such celebrations is a good way for you to get in occupancy. So Vaksana Farms is located in a place where there are some very popular, very ancient temples are nearby. There's this Mailam temple, there is this Vakrai Kaliamman temple. They are fairly famous. So we get people wanting to come to those temples. It could be either for a conjuring ceremony or could be for a wedding ceremony. It could be many other things, but they're looking for a nice, hygienic, very nice, cool place to come and stay. So their motivation is not to come here and enjoy the farm. Their motivation is that they're coming for this temple function, but they need a nice, clean place to stay. Otherwise, the nearest clean place is about 30 kilometers away, 40 kilometers away. So this turns out to be a nice one. So targeting people, spiritual people who are interested in going, that's one very important thing. We found that Montessori schools, as part of their educational curriculum, they are required to go visit farms. So for me, that was an aha moment. So because it is part of their educational curriculum, then getting students, and they come in as 100 students, 150, 200 students, they come in, and that becomes a nice revenue source. You're not really doing a good service, telling them about how organic farming is done and giving them a nice experience and showing them around, but it also adds to your kitty. So likewise, you can think of various ways. So a very interesting thing, Shami. So we took on some very unpopular decisions, good decisions, but very unpopular ones. So for example, we do not allow alcohol consumption on the farm. And a lot of people, especially people in the hospitality industry, I run a digital marketing business. My company has worked with Club Mahindra for 10 years. We continue to work with Sterling Holidays, the 13th year of us working. So we've been deeply entrenched in the hospitality ecosystem. And every person who knows hospitality will tell you that you give what your customer wants, right? So many people said if you don't allow alcohol, it's going to turn away a lot of potential customers. But we took that decision, and interestingly, it turned out to be a big plus point. So people, there is a segment of people who want to go to a very family-friendly place where, it's a very safe place for them to come in. It's very family
So it's like a
centric.
positive for them. It's a selection criteria for them that this place does not allow alcohol, hence I will go there. Very interesting. Very
Correct.
interesting. So
Second
in
is we don't
every
serve
problem there is a
non-vegetarian
there is an
food.
opportunity.
Correct. We don't serve non-vegetarian food. That's a no. So right now, the reason is because my mom can cook only vegetarian food. My grandma used to cook only vegetarian food. So we are not serving the customers per se, even though we are told always the customer is king. But in this case, for me, my party's happiness and my amma's happiness is more important, right? So what are they comfortable with? They're comfortable with vegetarian food. And interestingly, that turned out to be such a blessing in disguise I mean, I never knew that there were families who were gunning for places that serve only vegetarian food. And the amount we get a lot of Jain families coming in because here mom cooks sattvic food. She does not use any, for them, for Jains, she does not use anything that grows below the ground. And they're super happy for them to come. And within the Jain community, the word has really spread around and we get a lot of repeat visitors coming in. So another lesson for farm stay owners or people listening to this conversation is pick a stand, right? Stick to a cause. And you'd be very surprised how it turns out to be your US.
Right. The world is that's amazing. That's brilliant. I mean, the world is a large place, and if you actually take a stand, you'll always find people who are ready to support you and your cause, right? And they will spread the word a lot because they identify with that. They're like, oh, these guys are thinking like me. Let me tell all of my other friends who think like me, right? So makes a lot of sense. If you see, for example, and this is the same reason, I mean, why did Zomato kind of start their whole vegetarian delivery thing and all of that stuff, right? There is certainly a very large segment of people who are looking for those sort of things. So this is all very interesting. Now, I think if you talk about marketing, we are probably going to need 3-4 hours because you have so many brilliant ideas. Probably a lot of it also because you have been a marketeer yourself for a substantial amount of time, right? But I think there are some very important points that you bring upside. For example, one of the things that you mentioned was perhaps look at the local traffic. See, by definition, a farm stay is probably going to be maybe not in a very touristy place, in a slightly off the beaten sort of a beaten track sort of a place. Now, obviously, in those sort of situations, there's not going to be a nearby good hotel and things like that, right? But at the same time, people do keep visiting everywhere. People have their relatives. They might not have enough accommodation. There would be some temple and things like that, right? So why not think of yourself, especially during those off season, that I'm just basically also I'm giving you a really nice place to stay for people who are not necessarily looking for the farm stay experience, but who are anyway going to come there, right? And there's nothing else there, right? So I think that's a great strategy. And one quick question that I have is you mentioned that corporates are something, corporate team outings, brainstorming sessions, all of these are very important, team bonding sessions. These are all very important places and they are all looking at things like farm stays, etc. Now, how do you reach out to them? Is there any difference in how you reach out to consumers? Which is, so in case of consumers, you talked about how make sure that you are there on these marketplaces, you are discoverable through SEO, you are on Instagram, YouTube, etc. Is it the same thing that would get you your corporate customers, or do you need to do a special separate effort for getting corporates?
It has to be a completely separate activity, Shavi. So who are the people who take decisions in corporates? Typically, there is two sets of people. The first one is learning and development managers. They are L&D heads. They're in charge of ensuring that the team's skilled continue to be or remain skilled. So they have a budget. And, they're seeking for very innovative, interesting, and enjoyable ways for their employees to learn. So what we have done is we have turned the Vaksana Farms into a retreat space also. It's a place where people can come in and host workshops, they can host seminars, they can host learning sessions. So that is something that we have positioned it in such a way. The second set of people are heads of HR heads, the human resource department. They also have a substantial budget, mainly meant for off-site retreats, team bonding activities, and they're constantly looking for very different experience. And I often hear them say, hey, you know what, we have taken them to almost all the 5-star resorts in and around. What is it that I can do differently? But I do not want to travel so long. For example, Ooty or Kodaikanal is like 8 hours and 10 hours drive from Chennai. Whereas Vaksana Farms is just 2 hours from Chennai or 5 hours from Bangalore. So it becomes a little bit more easily accessible for them. So that's a plus point. So you need to reach out to them, which means that you need to be seen in HR conferences. You need to be seen in L&D conferences. You need to network. You need to ensure if one company comes and does a retreat. So, for example, we had a team from Accenture recently come in and do a retreat at our space. And what do? You make sure that you have video footages of them. You make sure that it turns into a nice small documentary. So that when somebody else wants to come in or contemplating, you can show them, you can show and tell, hey, here are the different activities that would here, the different corporates that have come in. So you can do that. Another important revenue factor that will be there, which is an extension of what you just told about corporates, is us running our own events. And that becomes a very significant revenue source, Shani. So, for example, I host regular events. So one of the events that I host is called Bucket List Bootcamp. So every year, I handpick about 12 people, and it's a 2-day off-grid event, which means no mobile phones, no laptops, no newspapers, no radio, no TV, and you only think about what is your 30-year vision and your 50-year vision, and what legacy you want to leave after you pass away. Think of it like a New Year resolution, but on steroids. What is it that you want to do? What's your big, hairy, audacious goal in life that you want to accomplish before you die? So that's an event that is very, very popular amongst people, and that gets in, people pay, come and join. We host permaculture workshops, which is such a very cliched thing, but I twist it around. I don't do a permaculture workshop. I do a workshop called How to Build Your Dream Farm. And I noticed that there is a market for people on the cusp of wanting to start a farm, but they want to learn from somebody who has been there and done that. I've done lots of mistakes in my 12-year journey, and I'm very happy to share so that others don't have to repeat. I'm happy to share all the techniques, tricks that has helped me in building Vaksana Farms. I'm happy to be a reflection of all the cases and 100+ interviews that I've done with people in running farms, and I'm happy to share it. So that becomes like a valuable resource for somebody wanting to. So that becomes a nice revenue source. So likewise, I host my own IP, our own workshops, but I also co-host with others. Right, which means that I'm a part a resource person, but somebody else takes the main stage and they run the workshop.
And very often that person who's kind of conceptualizing the workshop, they are actually going to be doing the marketing for you, right? Because you are basically providing them the venue and all of the support services. So suddenly you have this other team of marketeers who are incentivized to work with you and for you and drive traffic. I think that's a great idea. But typically, just for our viewers' understanding, what sort of a revenue share is kind of usually done in this industry between the venue provider and the guy who's actually doing the retreat or the workshop? What's kind of the usual norm?
Yeah. So there are multiple formats. If somebody is coming and using your space only as a venue, which means you're giving them the space and you're giving them the infrastructure, they come and book the rooms, then you're only paying the venue host, right? So whatever is the cost that out there, they come and pay, and any income that is generated out of the workshop, 100% goes to them. And then there is a second model where we come in as a resource person, meaning that we are not just giving the venue, but you're also taking part in taking a few sessions, and you're also taking part in cross-promoting this particular session to our audience. So in that case, it becomes a 70-30 split, where 70% goes to the main person and 30% comes to you. The third model is where you take a much more significant skin in the game, which is an equal it's equal effort that goes in. So if that is the case, then the revenue gets split 50-50. So all these models are there. But I found the most profitable model I found is are two things. One, if you host your own event, your own IP event, and you're able to market it completely on your own, that's the most profitable. The second most profitable event are when corporate companies come and use your venue, where they pay on a per person basis. Your rooms automatically get booked. Your services, you're able to charge a premium for all extra activities that is happening at the farm. So the profit margins are much better if you focus on corporates. So these two would be something that I would recommend.
If I may add something here, one of marketing avenues which can be used, which maybe you probably do not use that right now, because you use all your produce in your own farm, right? All the produce that you grow, you use it in your own homestay, in your own farm stay. The other strategies that's possible is that you earmark some of the produce, not because you are going to make money from it, but because that gives you a reason to go to all of these farmers markets, etc., and stand there, meet people, tell them. So there your produce becomes your hook. They try your stuff and they're like, this is awesome. but you are actually not there to make money from the produce. You are out there to market your farm stay, to market your all these events and programs. I see that being done very effectively by a few farms near Bangalore, for example. They would go to a lot of the farmers markets, etc., and they make a lot more money from the farm stay and from the events than from actually selling the produce. They might sell a few bottles of black pepper and things like that, right? So this is also a very good strategy that can be used by farm stay owners, where because farm stay owners often they say, no, I don't want to sell produce because this is a less commoditized business, right? Where you are building an experience, the margins can be better and things like that, right? I think still selling some of your produce from a marketing standpoint for your funnel is not a bad idea, provided you can take that effort. It obviously there is a lot of effort. You are going on a Sunday and spending your whole Sunday standing in a farmer's market and trying to sell your produce. But remember, farmers markets are also places where people who are really, really keen on connecting back with nature and with farming, they are the ones who are going there as well, right? So I think that
It's
could be an
actually a
interesting.
perfect target audience. Anybody who comes to a farmer's market is exactly the target audience that you're aiming for.
Right, 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 right. Another thing that I was thinking as we were talking about this marketing bit, and obviously because I also kind of come from a marketing and product sort of a background, so that's where it gets very interesting for me as well. So if you look at I think I was thinking about you were talking about how do you basically make sure that there is no off season, right? And you were talking about how people go to these places for their anniversaries and things like that. So I think it's not a bad idea if you kind of do a very simple KYC sort of a form for your customers, right? And you note down their anniversaries, their birthdays, etc. when they come to the farm, and you're kind of noted that down so that you can then segment that database and you can actually send them an email like a month before their birthday saying, hey, by the way, I know you enjoyed your trip at this point of time. I know your birthday is coming up in a couple of weeks. Why don't you come down to Vaksana? And because we love you so much, we are going to give you an 80% discount, right? Yeah, you can do it strategically, because if it's something where, if it's off season, I know you don't like that word, but if it's like there is capacity which you want to use, you can then do a very targeted sort of a reach out to people saying, hey, it's a birthday gift from us to you. It's a birthday gift from Vaksana. Come here, we are going to actually, waive off your 70% of your costs because we love you, right? So I think that's also another strategy that can be used, right?
Yeah, it's a super important strategy, Shamik. The ability to capture customer data, not just customers or guests who have come and stayed with you, but people who are evincing interest. Somebody who could have messaged you, commented on WhatsApp, somebody could have emailed you, somebody could have called you, having read a newspaper article about your farm and they're inquiring about you. But they don't have any intention of coming and staying now, but they're very curious to know. So any kind of an inbound call or inbound message is worth its weight in gold. And we need to, every farm stay owner must have a robust CRM, customer relationship management tool, and store all of the data. And like you beautifully said, it's important for you to segment in which buckets do they fall. Are they couples, newly married couples? Are they people with young kids? Are people retirees? Are people who are very interested in organic food? So there could be different buckets. You put them in, and then you reach out to them with messages that make sense to them. If they find your messages useful to them, then it does not become a marketing material. It does not become like a promotional material. You're really rooting for them. And once they find it useful, they will want to come back and stay. But I 100% agree with you. I think it's a very well said point, Shay.
The other angle I was kind of thinking about as we were talking around this is that the experience that you have with your customers, right, should not end once they leave the thing, right? So how do you kind of build a community around this? How do you build a community of people? Because communities are very powerful, right? Communities end up referring other people. They feel connected to you and things like that. Is there a way this whole angle of community can be used by farm stay owners to improve their business?
Yes, it's very, very important. And you need to ensure that a guest who has come and stayed with you, now they know the story, right? They know the story about your family. They know the story about how it's taken shape. They know you. They know your kids. They know names of people who work at the farm. So there is this already that emotional bonding. So constantly keeping them updated on what is happening at the farm is something that people really appreciate, which means you could do this like an emailer, Shamik, that you rightly mentioned. It could be once in 3 months. A mailer can go out to them, giving them updates on what are the new things that is happening. So, for example, taking a book out of your advice, we are actually building the farm stand. Think of like a farmer's market, but just one stall, but being present at the farm. And we put all our produce and producers of our friends and people can come and buy. So launching that should become a news that you should spread it out to people who come and stay, to all the guests who have come and stayed with us for the last 3 years. Another activity is just keeping your social media channels really active. And many people will follow you. And when they follow you, they are very interested in all the different aspects of it. So that is important. When a calf is born or a puppy is born, reach out to one of the guests and tell them that, hey, see, we all have what is called the super promoters, right? Who are super promoters? Super promoters are somebody who they've fallen in love with your place. These are people who keep coming back to you multiple times. These are people who will call you on your daughter's birthday and wish. They become really intertwined with the family. So find out who the super promoters are. And when a puppy is born, call them and say that, hey, there's a puppy. What name would you like to give for the puppy? And keep them part of it. So for example, on a full moon night, you're throwing a feast, a moon feast you're throwing, and then give them an invitation, for them to come in and be part of that. They really, really appreciate that, treating them special.
And like you
So
mentioned, this
that's a
idea that you guys do, right, where people plant saplings to for their particular dreams, etc. They put in a sapling, right? So it's actually pretty cool because that immediately gives you a reason to go back to them and say, hey, by the way, the tree that you planted is actually now budding, and probably we expect fruits out of it, right? That will probably incentivize them to come back again. So I think that's actually a very brilliant. I've never heard of that before. That's a brilliant way of kind of doing that, getting people really attached to the thing. Finally, there's a business outcome also, right? So one is it improves the experience itself. Secondly, is that it could get you repeat business. So that's also really brilliant. So I think one of the things that's coming out with this is that marketing your farm stay or driving revenues for it is like there are n number of things you can do. You should not feel constrained and see, okay, array, this is going to be a tough business. How do I get in? There is this whole, the whole issue around there will be costs that I have to pay even when there are not enough people are coming and staying. But there are so many levers you have, right? You just have to keep at it, be creative, and try out all of these different techniques to go ahead and reach out to people. So I think that's
and
a great thing. Now
and
let's
importantly,
yeah, go ahead.
Shami, and importantly, enjoying each step of the way. So while it is a hard-nosed business, while it is important for you to get in the revenues, the best part about all of this is that treat each one of this as a very happy challenge and enjoy the journey. Take on these challenges, knowing very well that for every problem there are multiple solutions. All you have to do is just pick up the right solution. If you go with that happy mindset and happy mentality, then you will see that positivity and the happiness really rubs off beautifully on the guests. And that's exactly what they want. When they come on holiday, they want to come on holiday in a happy space.
Now, so I think the last thing that I kind of wanted to ask you was around like, what do you think is the future of farm tourism, agri-tourism, farm stays in India? I mean, obviously, I'm pretty sure you think it is bright, but would love to get a slightly deeper perspective about that. I mean, what do you think? Where is it moving to? Is it something which is going to explode? Is it already exploding? What's going on with farm tourism as a sector in India?
Yeah. So let me tell you, I have a slightly negative perception and negative foresight. And the thing is that sadly, this is going to get commoditized. There will be people, there will be investors who will come in, people who will want to get in because there is money to be made. People will treat this as an hospitality venture. People will be very profit focused. And when you're profit focused, then that personal touch and that the true essence of it being a farm and a farm stay will take a back seat. Sadly,
It has
that's
already
going to
happened with
happen.
a lot of Airbnb bed and breakfast also, right? If you see 4 or 5 years back, you were very likely to get a really nice experience where you could connect with the host. Now Airbnb is full of people who do it as a business, right? I mean, the same guy is managing 10 different, 20 different properties. And it's basically just a room. You actually don't connect with the host and things like that. So yeah, maybe, I mean, wherever there is a profit pool, and if the macro trends are good, then certainly people will get into it only for money. So, but what should people do to kind of, when something like that happens in the sector, how should they still work so that they can succeed and they can have a very fulfilling adventure out of this?
Premiumize your product. This is exactly the opposite of what most others do when the market space gets crowded. When the competition gets tighter and when competition gets hotter, then you play the numbers game. You reduce your price so that you can get more people. In fact, do the other way around. Premiumize your product, increase your cost, but also double your service. Make it like super special for people to come in. And I think that is it's a very important thing for people to do. So this is a lesson actually I learned from the Maldives. We all know Maldives is like this super elite, super expensive holiday space. But there's a very interesting marketing lesson we need to learn from the resort owners. A few years ago, I think about less than 7 or 8 years ago, until that time, for the first 30 years or so, or first 40 years or so, because Maldives being a completely Muslim country, foreigners can only go to resort islands, meaning that entire island is owned by one resort. Foreigners cannot go to islands where locals live because they are Muslims. Alcohol is not served there. They don't want to corrupt people with bikini clad women. So they completely separated it out. But about a few years ago, the new government that came into power, they relaxed that norm and said that, hey, you can actually start your Airbnbs and local islands can also host people. So now this was a massive hit for all the resorts. Now imagine these days they're charging 1 lakh, 1.5 lakh rupees a day for a room. Now suddenly these days are charging like 5,000 rupees and 7,000 rupees per night, for almost a similar kind of an experience, right? Because your view is pretty much the same around. But you know what? The Maldives resorts as a community, what they did, they doubled their prices, right? So this is like, wow. I mean, my mind was absolutely blown when it came. So when they doubled their prices, they were able to elevate their experiences to a completely different level. They have all the activities out there. And they started to target markets where they want to go for luxury. They want to go for exclusivity. And it turned out to be such a massive success. So taking a leaf out of that, my advice to farm stay owners, right? If you're giving them an amazing experience, if you're personally investing your own time, if you and your family are spending time with the guests and really giving them a great personalized experience, put a value to it, right? Charge a premium, but give them an amazing experience. Do not fall prey to crunching down and lowering your numbers, and because that is a downward spiral to death. So this will be my advice, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what we are
Once you
doing.
reduce the prices, you will need to start reducing your costs. The quality of your service will go down. Once quality of your service will go down, your ratings will go down. You will not get enough reference, and then you have to reduce costs further. So absolutely a downward spiral. A couple of questions which I think people would still have. One of the things that we hear from people who have a farmland who are planning to get into organic farming full time. One of the things that we obviously advise them a lot, saying you need to diversify your income streams, right? So don't just look at selling produce. Look at creating experiences. Look at agritourism. Look at new peak events. Create value-added products, for example. All of these things, we talk a lot about these things. So one of the objections or questions that people can come, yeah, all of that is fine, but my farm is like in the middle of nowhere. It's 6 hours from the nearest city, right? Nobody will ever come. So what do you have to say about that? Do people go
It's
to
an
five,
absolute
6 hours
blessing.
away as well, or do you have to be
It's a blessing.
okay?
is a blessing, and you need to be thankful that your place is away from city, your place is away from towns. If that's the case, turn that to your advantage. I'm telling you from my own experience, my farm is in a very remote village. In fact, it's 2 kilometers away from a remote village. And my initial doubts were who's going to come. There's so many other touristy places around, but you'd be surprised that people are actually wanting to run away from civilization. People will pay a premium to stay away from people. So turn that into an advantage. But it all boils down to great service, great experience, genuine hospitality, and put your heart and soul into this. You can't fail. I can tell you that. But you need to have a lots of patience. It's been 12 years since we started the farm. For the first 10 years, we were bleeding money. We were running at a loss. So you need to ensure that you play the long game, and don't be afraid to invest. Please treat this as any business. For the business to succeed, you need to ensure that you give a long runway, but you also have a vision for the future. Be extremely numbers driven, right? That's something that I would advise every farm stay owner or wannabe farm stay owner. You need to know your numbers inside out. Where is the money coming in? What is your expenses? You spend 2 rupees on a nail, put that down. It needs to go into your register. Have a finance app or a spreadsheet, jot down everything, have a weekly review, have a monthly review, know where your finances are going, where can you cut costs without compromising on quality, what are other revenue sources. Shamik beautifully mentioned about the different revenue sources that is available for farm owners. So explore all of them. And even if some doesn't get you money directly, it can really help you in other business. For example, participating in, what's the word that you used, Shabik? Not retreats, all the farm stands that people put together, organic farmer markets. So those are all amazing places to
Farmers
be
markets,
present.
yeah, farmers markets.
The most important thing for all of these things to do is to build a really good brand. Pick a really unique name, build a solid brand, have your digital presence, your website, your social media, ensure that you do proper search engine optimization, capture lots of photos, capture lots of videos. Whether you're going to use them or not doesn't matter, but keep collecting that repository of all of these videos. And then if you're not good at videos, get a professional to help you out and tell those visual storytelling. And these are things that will be super helpful for you.
Cool. I think we have run out of time for the show today. So, but this is great. So let me just quickly kind of summarize, right? So I think one of the things that we learned today was that A, people are really looking for experiences. B, you can certainly build a profitable farm stay business, but you have to do it with a lot of passion. It cannot be something that you're looking at just for money. But at the same time, that does not mean you're not going to use business acumen. So you have to use your business acumen. You have to look at revenues. You have to look at costs. And we talked about so many different innovative marketing ideas about revenues. And I'm sure we can keep talking for literally 10 hours on them and come up with more and more ideas on them. So there are really infinite number of ways to drive revenues. But of course, you need to make sure that your costs are there, and for that, keeping records, being very attentive about it, running it like a professional business, right? Just because it's your passion does not mean that you should not run it professionally, right? So that's also important. And I think the future, there is a mixed thing going on there, which is that it is because it can be very profitable and a lot more people are looking for it. So it might get commoditized, and we probably might see large businesses creating chains of farm stays and whatnot, right? But so be aware of that. But your game is different. You are going to play a very different game. You are going to play the game of differentiation. You are going to play the game of creating experiences, and you are going to have a really good time in doing this whole thing, right? So I think on that note, thank you so much, Kiruba. This was such a pleasure, and I think very few people actually talk about farm tourism from an Indian angle, from being able to build a business. So I'm really glad that you're writing this book as well, and I'm looking forward to its release. I'm certainly going to go and get a copy of it,
Yes, Shabir.
because
But
it
also,
seems that more and more
one
people
very
should talk about it.
important point I wanted to illustrate for anyone who wants to take farmstay business seriously is invest in equipping yourself with the right knowledge. I would really urge people to join courses like what Farmizen is doing at Farmizen Academy. The book, for example, which is like 3 years of research that I'm coupling together. In fact, in June, second week, Shamik, I'm actually doing a marketing workshop specifically for farmstay owners in helping, with the focus on helping occupancy. So it's a very hands-on 2-day workshop that I'm doing. So events like these, right? These courses like Farmizon Academy, or listen to podcasts like the podcast that people are listening to right now. Before you get into the business, please equip yourself with as much knowledge. Please have conversations with other farmstay owners. Take the effort and ask them for best practices. Ask them for what are mistakes to avoid, and that's how you become really successful. And I think I really want to thank you, Shamik. What you're doing is really an yeoman service. Having conversations on multiple fronts, on different aspects, is super helpful. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Kiruba. Thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the Farmizen show, where we uncover the delicious interplay between food, farming, and wellness, shaping a brighter, healthier tomorrow. Better for farmers, better for the planet, better for you.